Well, good morning. I'm Tony Filipovich, a member of this congregation and the worship associate. I'm serving this morning along with your minister, Reverend Diana McLean, and it's my pleasure to welcome you all to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Mankato. All of you, whether joining us in person or on Zoom, are welcome in this time that we make sacred together. We extend an especially warm welcome to you if this is your first time here. We know and appreciate that it can be difficult to cross the threshold of a new church for the first time, whether in person or online. And we humbly acknowledge that before European colonization, the Dakota people were stewards of the land on which our fellowship building sits. They teach us that the land does not belong to any of us, though it holds the history of our conflicts and our attempts at reconciliation. And we commit to an ongoing and intentional journey of humble connection with the indigenous peoples, characterized by understanding our shared history, accepting responsibility for restoration, and building relationships in the here and now. Thus, we seek to be good relatives. Sunday morning is a team effort, and I'm grateful to all of you who are willing to serve. Our pianist this morning is Shay McKay. Welcome back. The Director of Children's Faith Development, Macy Forsyth, will share a story for all ages. Children's Chapel will be led by Macy and Danielle Stedman. Nursery care will be provided by Barb Franchino and Alex Sinsema. Thanks to our worship tech, Kat Clements, and sound assistant Andy Roberts. Thanks to Denny Cramblett for taking care of hearing assistance, and thanks to our greeter, Diane Dobitz. If you are new to the fellowship, we're grateful that you are expanding the we, who is us. If you're attending by Zoom today, you are welcome to stay after the service to visit together. For those attending in person, we have coffee and refreshments in the fellowship hall today, thanks to Nancy and Dennis Cramblett and Amy Meckler. We're always in need of people to take turns in these roles that make Sunday morning possible. We're especially in need of more people to take turns assisting Kat with the sound system during worship, but there are many other opportunities as well. There's a clipboard in the hutch in the entryway for you to sign up for one or more ways to serve, and you can also still use the Sign Up Genius through our website. We have two announcements. One is the giving tree. The donations will be accepted through January 8th. You can come to the tree and get a ticket and then bring an unwrapped present and place it under the tree. Also, we're looking for singers for the winter solstice ceremony, which will be Thursday, the 21st of December. The service will start at 7. But those who are interested in singing, if you would come at 6 o'clock to rehearse, contact Reverend Diana so that we have some idea of whether we're going to have, how many voices we'll have. I'll put it that way. I don't know how that reverberates in the back of the room, but up here it is still reverberating. It's wonderful. So together, let us kindle a flame symbolizing our co-creation of sacred space at home and in this place, made sacred by years of love. If you are with us on Zoom, please write in the chat that a chalice is lit on your street. And please say the words with me in the pew cards. We are a welcoming people of diverse beliefs who commit to nourish the spirit, broaden the mind, nurture the earth, and build community. May this flame we kindle remind us to strive today and every day to love beyond belief.
Love is on the way, that hymn tells us. It even provides an image of love, love with a capital L, which is one of the ways that I name the divine, the image of love as a guest on the way to us. Love is on the way. Are we the ones embodying it, hastening its arrival in the world? If we are the hosts to love as a guest, how welcoming are we when it appears on our doorstep? How many of us can identify with Shay in the story that she shared a few moments ago, especially that part at the beginning, feeling frustrated or even angry about delays that seem unnecessary and perhaps the fault of a stranger? I know I can identify with that. How many can identify with the woman buying cat supplies for her daughter's kitten? How many of us have had someone unexpectedly engage with us when we were maybe feeling invisible? I know I can relate to that too. And how many can identify with the cashier? How many of us have consciously taken the time to interact with the person right there in front of us, even if we don't know them and may very well never see them again? To offer small moments of kindness, even when we are under pressure, as that cashier no doubt felt on a busy pre-holiday shopping day. Shay's story, when she first told it to me, made me think of another story of kindness between strangers at a cash register. My dad was in the Air Force, and we had a group of friends who were kind of like honorary aunts and uncles to me and my brother when we were growing up. We saw them more often than we saw our biological family. And one of those friends, a man named Butch Elsie, was at a fast food restaurant with his teenage son Derek one day. And as they were paying, Butch noticed that the cashier looked unhappy. He also noticed a necklace she was wearing, and he said, "That's a beautiful necklace. Someone must love you a lot." The cashier's face lit up with a smile. After they had taken their food to their table, Derek asked Butch, "Why did you say that? You don't know her." Butch replied, "Did you see the change in the look on her face?" Derek nodded, and Butch continued, "That's why. You can change somebody's day for the better by seeing people and interacting with them." Hearing that story from Butch decades ago changed how my dad interacted with people, looking past the fact that they were being slow or grouchy and seeing the person. Butch and Dad used the term consequential strangers for people who take the time to make a difference in that way. It wasn't just cashiers at fast food restaurants or big box stores. My dad spent a lot of time in and out of the hospital in the last decade of his life. And no matter how sick he was, he always made a point of knowing the names of each of the people who came into his room: doctors, nurses, aides, cleaning crew, and not just knowing their names, but thanking them by name. No one was invisible to him. He chose to be a consequential stranger. What our first reading, the poem by Jan Richardson, and these stories are about is being seen. Being seen not as an obstacle in someone's day, or a faceless employee or customer of a large company, but as a human being. Being seen in our wholeness and appreciated just as we are. Loved just as we are. Not because we have earned it through our actions, but because we deserve it as human beings. This is the core of our universalist theology, that we earn love, what we might even call salvation, just by being. Not through faith, not through works, or through saying the right words in church on a Sunday, just for being. Jan Richardson's poem talked about what it feels like to receive radical hospitality, the kind of welcome that invites our whole self into community. That is one way that we can be love's hands and love's voice in the world, by offering hospitality that deep and that complete, asking no one to leave part of their identity or part of their story at the door when they enter here. We can do that in big ways and in little ways. We actually do that already in big ways and little ways. I would say we have made a pretty good start on radical hospitality, but I also believe there is always room for more love to show up in our welcome. It goes beyond warm words of welcome at the start of each worship service. It goes beyond offering coffee, food, and conversation to visitors and to each other after worship. It goes beyond offering children's faith development classes and nursery care for the youngest among us. It goes beyond a ramp and an elevator for those with mobility challenges. It goes beyond being certified as a welcoming congregation for LGBTQIA+ folks. It goes beyond a land acknowledgement in worship each Sunday. It goes beyond our presence at Pride Fest and our pronoun pins. Now, don't get me wrong, all of those things are worth doing. All of them are part of offering love to those who come through our doors and those who never will. But we can do more. I wonder what would happen if we think of each of those areas I just listed and take the next small step in each of them. For example, in addition to avoiding binary gender language, what if we ordered name tags that right on them provided a place for people to put their pronouns, as many churches do now, so that each of us is welcomed without an assumption about our gender or our pronouns? What if, in addition to the elevator and ramps to allow worshipers and others to enter our building and a ramp that allows access to our youth group space, what if we considered how to make the chancel accessible, welcoming to preachers and speakers with a wide range of physical abilities? Maybe someday I'll tell you the story of when I preached at 2 different churches while I had a broken leg and what it looked like based upon their architecture. My point today is not to propose a detailed plan of how we can achieve radical hospitality at a higher level. I'm just asking, what does love ask of us? How can we be the best hosts to love that we can? Radical hospitality also includes a wide, warm theological welcome within the framework of our Unitarian Universalist theology. It's not quite true that, quote, you can believe whatever you want here, which is a common statement about Unitarian Universalism, because there are beliefs that run counter to our theology, beliefs that would limit, for example, who we see as equally worthy. But it is true that our faith offers a welcome to everyone, regardless of their beliefs about theological questions, like whether or not there is a God, and if so, what that God is like, the divinity or humanity or both of Jesus Christ, or what exactly happens to a person after they die. Theological hospitality means that sometimes the language in worship will perfectly reflect your own individual theology, whether you define yourself as theist, atheist, pantheist, agnostic, or anywhere else in the wide theological spectrum. It means that sometimes we will use the word God, and sometimes we will use other language for the holy. It means sometimes the language will resonate with you, and sometimes it will be uncomfortable for you. You don't have to like all of it equally well, but in order for us to be theologically welcoming, we must not reject or disparage each other's religious language. Nor is it necessary or appropriate for us to try to persuade each other that one belief is superior to another, a regrettable behavior that I have witnessed often, especially in the years in which humanists and theists were fighting for dominance in our congregations. And, for example, the humanists would suggest that reason and spirituality were mutually exclusive, thus implying that theists were somehow less intelligent than the humanists. Offensive, right? None of us are better or worse than each other. That's the very opposite of radical hospitality, and it is certainly not what love asks of us. And of course, it's not only here at church that we can consider what love asks of us. In times such as these, when anxiety is so high in our nation and in the world, it can often feel like the kind of love that I'm talking about, love without conditions, love for those we don't even know, perhaps even basic kindness, it can feel like that's a thing of the past, something quaint and old-fashioned. Jan Richardson, the author of this morning's first reading, writes a blog as well as poetry. On the page where I found this morning's reading, she quoted the Gospel of Luke, chapter 1, verses 39 and 40, in which Mary was pregnant with Jesus. Those lines read, "In those days Mary set out and went with haste to a Judean town in the hill country, where she entered the house of Zechariah and greeted Elizabeth." Then Richardson wrote, "The archangel Gabriel had extended his astounding invitation. Mary has given her astonishing yes. Now she is alone, suddenly, entirely, dangerously alone, save for the unlikely child she now carries. She flees toward her kinswoman, toward refuge, toward sanctuary. In the home of Elizabeth, in the company of her cousin, who is herself pregnant in most unusual circumstances, Mary finds what she most needs. Elizabeth gathers and enfolds her, welcomes her, blesses her. In response to Elizabeth's blessing, Mary sings, and how she sings. She sings of a God who brings down the powerful, who lifts up the lowly, who fills the hungry with good things. Strangely, wonderfully, Mary sings of a God who not only will do those things, but who has done these things. She sings as if God has already accomplished the redemption and restoration of the world. Richardson says, "Oh, my friends, this is what a blessing has the power to do. The blessing that Elizabeth speaks and enacts through her words, her welcome, her gift of sanctuary, such a blessing has the power to help us, like Mary, speak the word we most need to offer. Such a blessing gives us a glimpse of the redemption that God, in God's strange sense of time, has somehow already accomplished. Such a blessing stirs up in us the strength to participate with God in bringing about this redemption in this time, in this world. Where will we go, like Mary, to find and receive such a blessing? How will we open our heart, like Elizabeth, to offer it?" Now, some of us, as Unitarian Universalists, may believe less in God's redemption than in our own ability to redeem ourselves and others through love. Maybe being love's hands in the world is about radical kindness and radical hospitality. Who, I wonder, might you make an effort to truly see today, or tomorrow, or this week? Who might you normally have moved past in your daily routine without a thought? Who, I wonder, is not feeling seen or heard right here in this congregation? Maybe no one, if we're lucky, but we are a group of human beings, and that means sometimes we fall short of our high ideals, and sometimes our intentions are not the same as the impact of our words and actions or our silences and inactions. Who might feel excluded here, and how might we more fully welcome them? 2,000 years ago, an innkeeper welcomed an immigrant couple. Who might we welcome into our shelter, our sanctuary this season? Who might love find here? Love calls us to find the answers together. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be.
As Reverend Diana extinguishes the sanctuary chalice, please extinguish your chalice at home and say the words with me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.